Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative podcast. It's the podcast where we have digital discussions, the worlds of pop culture, social media, TV, film, sports, everything really depending on the guest. We talk about it all in Popternative. As always, you know me as PD Beats on social media. I'm Peter Remoliotis. I am your host. And I have a really special guest. We're speaking to an actress who you'll recognize from many hit television shows, including SEAL Team, Supernatural, but we're talking specifically about her recent work on Disney Plus's The Mandalorian. She played the Armorer. We are with Emily Swallow. Emily, welcome to Popternative.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. And like I said, you've been so busy, so I can't even imagine how the last couple of years has been. It must have been nonstop.
Oh, busy is so good though. Because when you're an actor, you never know when you're going to have those periods of where you're sitting there and you're like, anyone put me in something. So I'm really grateful to be busy.
Well, that's what they say, right? Like when you're not busy is when you should be worrying, right?
Yeah.
That's basically what they say. Whether you're acting, writing, producing, you're all storytellers. When did Emily Swallow decide that she wanted to be a storyteller?
I didn't know that it was the thing that I wanted to do until I was almost finished with college, but it was one of the things that I loved to do from a very early age because my parents are both lovers of music, and my dad plays several instruments. My mom sings. So I always grew up with music. And I guess my first official performing was in the church choir. At the church where I grew up, where my parents still go, and I go whenever I'm home. We would do cantatas and stuff. And then I did plays in school, but I think just because I didn't know anyone who had pursued a career as an actor, I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. There wasn't really anyone that I could look at and be like, oh yeah, that's a real job that I could do.
No, absolutely.
It just felt like it was out of reach.
No, for sure. Okay, that's interesting. And when did you kind of know? I mean, was there a project that you were working on in the early days where it really felt like a fit? Because a lot of people have times where they're experimenting of what they want to do. But was there a project that you did where you were like, "This is it. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life"?
Probably. Well, I think I sort of knew without knowing when I was a freshman in college and I did a production of Into the Woods. And I did not major in theater, but I kind of got glued to the drama department. And so I fell in love with it. And I also realized that, I got cast in some really great roles and some really challenging roles. Yep. And I realized that I couldn't just use my instinct for every single role, that if I was going to do it, I needed more of a toolkit and more of a process. So one of my acting teachers in undergrad saw how much I loved it. And Absolutely. Towards the end of undergrad said, well, have you thought about pursuing it? And I was like, ooh, what does that mean? And he encouraged me to audition for conservatories and MFA programs. And he helped me work on that. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. Every actor has a different path, and some people don't go to school for it at all, and they're brilliant. But I knew that I wanted to learn a bunch of different methods so that when I had a role that was perplexing to me and that was challenging, I would have a lot to draw from. And I'm so glad I did that. So I went to NYU and got my MFA. I knew I was in the right place when I was in grad school, and I've never looked back since then.
No, absolutely. And yeah, I went to grad school too. I know the grind is it's insane, but it teaches you to be organized, which is important. I feel like people don't realize that. People just say like, oh, you're learning new things, and when am I ever going to need this book or something? But it's beyond that education, in my opinion. It's more about like, it's prepping you for the real life.
Yeah.
Which is important.
What did you go to grad school for?
So I'm in Canada. So I went to Carleton University in the nation's capital, Ottawa, and I did my master's in communication studies.
All right.
So media, messaging, all that fun stuff.
Nice.
But we'll get to, because I have some Supernatural and some SEAL Team questions, but obviously we're gonna address the elephant in the room. I mean, like we gotta talk about the Mandalorian
A
on
fun
Disney.
elephant.
I mean, it's to be, for you to be part of something like that. Like, I can't even imagine when you found out that you were going to be their armorer. Like, what? Like, it must have been insane. Like, you're going to be part of one of the biggest. It's groundbreaking. It's one of the first shows on Disney Plus. That's crazy.
I didn't really know that though when I got it.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad because I didn't have a chance to get like nervous about it. Because I auditioned for it back. I remember it was right before I got married. I got married in August of 2018. And I auditioned for it in probably July. And I got it. And all I knew it was some sort of Star Wars live action series, but I didn't really know if that was going to be I'm always very cautious. And I didn't know quite what it was going to be. So I was like, okay, well, this could be cool. Or I don't know. You never know with stuff on streaming. There's so many shows that are just a flash in the pan. And then I shot all of my work for episodes 1 and 3 and 8. I was done by November of that year because we shot out of sequence. And so I was done with my work before the show was even announced publicly, before there were any press releases, before it was a big deal, which was great because I could just do the work. And I loved working on it. It was such a phenomenal group of people. And so then when I saw that it was maybe going to be kind of a big deal, I also knew that like no matter what the reception was, like I'd had a great time doing it, and I was really proud of what we'd done. So everything since then has been delicious icing on the cake. It's
pretty funny because sometimes I don't envy, people like yourself on really big shows when they go to appearances, because how many times are you, well, you love doing it, but how many times have you probably, like you tell people, I'm the armorer from Mandalorian, right? So many questions that people have, and you might not be able to answer all those questions, or you might not be.
You should have seen me when I was walking the red carpet at the premiere, because I was also like, I was not allowed to say anything. I mean, Disney didn't even want me to reveal that I was in more than the first episode. So they were asking all this stuff, and I was like, what? I didn't even know what to say.
Have you had that encounter yet where there's like a fan who's like really into the show and is asking you about theories or being upset? You're just kind of like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, yeah.
Like, I will tell you that I'm loving digging into the Star Wars universe, and there is no bottom to what you can dig into. But I'm also realizing, like, even though I feel pretty well versed in it now, there's so many questions people ask me, and I just have to say, I have no idea what you're talking about. Would you tell me?
Absolutely. So I want to do kind of a little bit of like, we're going to do now what I call the tour of Emily Swallow. We're going to talk about 4 shows you've done, and each one we're going to talk about them. You're going to kind of tell me a little bit about what you kind of enjoy, because you mentioned, the fans and everything, what you enjoyed about working on that show, reception from fans and your character. Mm-hmm. So we're going to do, we're going to start with The Mandalorian, then we're going to go over to SEAL Team, then we're going to go to the animated stuff of Castlevania, and we're going to end with Supernatural. So if you forget that order, let me know, but let's do that. So let's do it.
So I'm just going to tell you what I enjoyed about working on it.
Yeah, what you enjoyed working, like kind of like, like a little bit like almost like an elevator pitch, like it was like why you love doing that character, the experience with the fans. Just kind of give us a little brief, overview, so to speak.
I have to say, like, one of the things that is coming up for me now with people loving it so much and seeing what an impact the character has, it's really awesome to be so well known for a character that has nothing to do with how I look, because
true. Yeah, they don't. Yeah,
and we always had to worry about that as actors. I think especially like as women, for better or for worse, like we have to think about it, and it's really fun to have a character that that has nothing to do with that. And the process of working on this character was so unique. It's so different from anything I've gotten to do in television, because I actually got to pull from some of my theatrical training and working with masks And it was so fun to build the character with, we were shooting episodes 1 and 3 at the same time. So Dave Filoni and Deborah Chow and all of us who were playing Mandalorians, we were kind of finding the language of their movement together and what was effective and what was distracting. And that was a really fun process because it was just so different from anything I've ever done.
Absolutely.
So it was a really challenging process in a way that, like positively challenging. And then the fan reception has just been unlike anything I have ever experienced.
Did you
And
see
that's
a spike?
something.
Did you see a spike in terms of interactions? Like what once like
Oh, yes.
yeah.
Yeah. And that is saying something because the Supernatural fan base is also very passionate.
Mhm.
But this was like bigger even than anything I experienced with that. And
Absolutely.
especially after that last episode and that amazing fight scene and all the stuff about like who the child is and the Jedi, and people seem to be really, really, really interested in the armorer. So I love that.
100%. We're now going to move over to SEAL Team because
Okay.
that's a show that's still going on in Emily
Yeah.
Swallow's life right now.
Yeah, you will continue to see me throughout the season. I love working with David Boreanaz, who most of my scenes are with. You know, people sometimes ask me about like working with all the guys, and I get to see them and the ladies in the makeup trailer, but I'm very rarely in scenes with anybody else but David. And it's been so fun to find that relationship between those characters. And he is just he's such an actor's actor. He does his homework. He comes in prepared. He wants to collaborate. He wants to find ways to make the scene better if we need to like tweak the writing a little bit. And I find that the writers on the show are receptive to that. And, you always want to be respectful. You don't want to just like go in and change everything someone has written, but it really feels like a group collaboration. And it's been, I didn't know going into it how many episodes it would be exactly or what it was going to look like. And I've really enjoyed the evolution of their relationship and the challenges that have come up. And it's just been, and everyone on that cast and crew is also just amazing.
Absolutely. And we're going to move on now to some animation. We're going to move on to Castlevania.
Yeah. Man, talk about something where I also didn't really know what I was getting into. I got cast. And I knew that Castlevania was a video game, and I knew like that there was a graphic novel, but I didn't really know what the series was going to look like. And I still distinctly remember the first day I went to record, and they showed me some clips of stuff that they'd already animated, and it just took my breath away because it's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been. Most of my work on that has been in a room all by myself, which is interesting. In voiceover, you're not always like in the same room or even recording at the same time as people that you're in scenes with.
For sure. It's different,
so it's an interesting thing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's also been fun because I think it's surprising for people anytime my character comes back because I'm dead. So, anytime there's a flashback and we get to learn a little bit more about that beautiful relationship that Lisa and Dracula had, it's delightful.
For sure. And rounding it off here with Supernatural, they brought your character back for kind of the last stuff, the finale. I mean, that must have been crazy for you. But I mean, the fan base of that show is like, it's nuts. Like it's probably top 5 in terms of like they call them the hot. It's crazy.
It's incredible. I definitely didn't know when I started shooting the show, like what that was going to be like. And I've just loved getting to know the fans at conventions and seeing like I feel like there's such a strong community between Supernatural fans. People seek each other out at conventions and they go to different conventions together and they're so supportive of each other. Yeah, I was honored and I was just so excited when they said they were going to bring me back for this last season. And I loved getting to work with Rob again because I'm just nuts about him. He's such a great actor and such a great person. And I am on tenterhooks just like everybody else to see how it ultimately finishes out. But I have a little more involvement along the way.
Mm-hmm. No, it shows your diversity too. as a storyteller with the 4, like when we did a little tour, I mean, one can make an argument like the 4 shows we just talked about are very different shows.
They are.
So I just want to say congratulations for, all that amazing things that you do. That's really, really awesome. And it's really cool to hear about those. And you know what? It's one of those things where, I don't think you're gonna look back and maybe, Supernatural is going to be like something you did like a long time ago in the next couple of years, right? But I'm sure you're never going to like get tired of talking about like your past projects either.
No, because I also feel like, I mean, especially with Supernatural and The Mandalorian, like those stories are stories that people want to keep digging into and
100%.
exploring. And I'm sure that there will, even though Supernatural is going to stop production, there's still going to be, dissection of all the episodes and theories about like what was really going on and all sorts of stories that the fans themselves create. And I love that. I love that it never really dies.
For sure. I want to end the interview with one of my kind of hallmark questions. When I started Popternative, I wanted to kind of I wanted to have discussions like behind the scenes, kind of getting to know, the behind the scenes of creating a show and what, these storytellers are going through like off camera and everything. And I always ask about, misconceptions of the industry, because a lot of people online often think, they know everything and, oh, it's like this, you know what I mean? But it's oftentimes the exact opposite, you know what I mean? So on the top of your head, what are some misconceptions of the entertainment, film and TV industry that you've kind of noticed in the last couple of years of working on it? So I'll give you an example. Some of the ones we've had are like the typical ones, like you see someone in a show for the first time and then you assume that's the only thing that person's ever done.
Yeah. Like, where did they come from?
So that's an obvious one. You know what I mean? There's also another one about the length of how long certain episodes or certain scenes take to film. Like people think that a scene that doesn't seem like it's like just like a dialogue scene between, 2 people in an office. They think that that's just an easy scene. You could do it in one take, but sometimes depending on what they want to get out of it, it could take a long time.
Yeah.
So anything like around that or like related to that you can, talk about?
Well, something that I always try to tell younger performers who are just getting into it, and I guess it's important for anyone, or not important, but maybe interesting for anyone to know, is how much rejection you take as an actor, even when you are quote unquote successful. So I'm in this like very blessed time right now where I'm seeing the culmination of work on several projects. But like right before that, I went through a period where I didn't do much at all for like 6 months, and I was auditioning nonstop.
It comes in waves, really right? It's like waves. Yeah.
And you really have to learn how not to, like when I go into an audition now, my goal is not to get the job, because even if I do good work, I might not get the job. So my goal just has to be like to do the best work that I can, and to kind of have an idea for myself about like how, first of all, trusting that the work I do on this audition is going to contribute to like my overall arc of work, and that it will, even if it doesn't pay off in getting cast here, like I'm doing good work, it'll pay off somewhere. And then sometimes just having like little individual goals for myself in each audition is helpful, because you will be rejected a lot as an actor, no matter what.
Absolutely.
Even people like at the top of their game, there's so many movies they've been passed up for, But
they say that no sometimes is the best teacher. It's the best.
Yeah.
It's the best lesson.
Yeah, I have friends who say rejection is God's protection.
It's unfortunate that it has to be like that, but that's how it is. I mean, you'll audition probably for 100 things and maybe get a chance on what, like 2 or 3 of them. Is that a correct estimate?
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. And you know what? You are an inspiration with all the stuff that you've done, and you're working very hard, and you like don't let anyone take that away from you, because you've worked very hard to be where you are right now. And I just want to congratulate you again on all the success, because it's really cool. And it's really cool that we were able to talk about like 4 massive shows that you had a pretty big dent on. So that's really cool for the show and really cool for you, obviously. So I'm happy we were able to talk about it. We will wrap up. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And where could people follow you on social media to keep up to date with everything?
Well, I have a Facebook fan page, Emily Swallow Fans. And then on Instagram and Twitter, my handle is Biggie Swalls, which is
that's good.
It's BIGESWALLZ. So it's more like Big E Swalls.
That is amazing. Well, seriously, congratulations for success with Mandalorian.
Thank you.
With all your other shows like SEAL Team, Castlevania.
Thanks for watching all those things. Because if people didn't like watching them so much, I wouldn't get to work so much.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much. And hopefully we can have you back on and talk about some more projects because this was awesome.
That would be wonderful.
Absolutely. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Be sure to catch Emily Swallow in The Mandalorian as the Armorer right now on Disney+. And until next time, this is Emily Swallow and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.